But the verses in Luke and Matthew, you notice how they talked about people's hearts failing them through fear, right? And it says the reason why their hearts were failing them through fear was because of the distress that they saw in the earth, right? You know, fear is the currency in the world. That's the currency in the world. The currency of the world and its systems, it's fear. That's what it is. And the reason why that's what it is because the world stands in awe of death. You know, John talked about they love the darkness, right? I'll get into later maybe to what that means. But the world stands in awe of the death and the corruption and the calamity that's in the earth. And because the meditation of their heart is all the time the evil they see in the earth, their steps are ordered, their hearts are moved by fear instead of the love of God, right? And that's what Jesus is getting at in Luke and in Matthew, right? The distress is lifted up in their heart, right? They stand in awe of the distress. The distress is like this all-powerful, almighty, it's a God, really, to them. And because they stand in that place, man, the meditation of their heart is all the time distress and destruction, and they're all the time moved by fear, right? Now the psalmist would come and say, the psalmist is like a parallel to that, or a comparing and a contrast. The psalmist says something powerful in Psalm 23, "Yea, though I walk through the valley shadowed with death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, Lord." So you have some people whose hearts are failing them for fear, over the distress they see everywhere. And then you got this guy over here whose heart is not failing him for fear. He's in the same distress, right? The valley that's shadowed by death. Even though I walk in the same distress that those guys are walking in, where their hearts are failing them for fear, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, Lord. And so it's an amazing contrasting of two different things. And it feeds right into what my mom said about it's not what's happening to you, it's about what you think about what you see happening. And so you could say both these guys are standing in a world surrounded by distress. One of them's heart is failing for fear, and the other one says, I fear no evil. Right? And so what's going on? They both living through the same kind of a thing. And I thought my mom did such an amazing job on so many different fronts. She didn't just come and say what was the truth, but she even recognized or had a gift of discernment working in her, where she could see the potential areas people could misunderstand what she said, and she come and wrapped it up all neatly on the other side. Listen, I'm not saying this. This is what I mean. That was powerful. But as my mom so beautifully pointed out last week, Psalm 23 that says, I fear no evil, that verse isn't saying you must keep yourself from fear. That guy, it's not like the testimony of a guy that's so great he didn't fear. That's not what it is. It's not a testimony about the faithfulness of that guy, right? So many times we can be so amazed that we're in awe of a guy who doesn't fear that we end up thinking how great the guy is. And we completely miss what the verse is even talking about. So that verse is not talking about how you must keep yourself from fear. It's talking about the strength of God to keep you from fear. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about the strength of God to keep your heart. It's talking about the strength of God to guard your heart. And even if you look in the book of Proverbs where it talks about guard your heart, right, with all diligence. I love what Gary says. Many times when you look at those verbs in the Old Testament and in the Hebrew, it's more of a passive action. It's talking about something guarding your heart for you. And if you read in the book of Proverbs, it starts off with the father and the mother telling the son to wear grace around their neck as like an emblem. What do you think is guarding the heart? Them or the grace? Exactly. And so it's God that will guard your heart. And it's God that comes to try to captivate you with His grace or His strength. So that in His strength being lifted up in your eyes or in your sight, your heart will be kept or your heart will be guarded.